Hello everybody, welcome from me, Jack, and from the now troublesome Frankie, the Elise. Now, I left you with the last video and it was a bit dour because it really did look like, to get a better angle so you can see me, it really did look like it was basically going to be a case of the clutch itself having gone, which is really, would have been a big thing. But today, with the help of one of my neighbours, I managed to measure, hopefully you can see it on my phone, the travel of the slave, so how much it's pushing the clutch out by, and it's only 10 millimeters. That's not enough, it should be 20. So that's great news, because I'd much rather have to change either the slave or the master, or even both of them, than have to get into the clutch. So I'm going to find out how much they cost, and then probably start with the cheapest, I guess. If they're both not expensive, I might just do both. But a lot of you mentioned the bracket. And I do understand, and I totally agree with you, that when I do something, and something goes wrong, the first thing I do is, right, what have I broken while I was trying to fix the car? Because that happens all the time. But I have disconnected that brace, and it's making absolutely no difference. And also, it's not a new bracket, as some of you were saying, that changes the angle. It is just a brace. So it doesn't change the angle of the way the slave is sitting or anything like that. It's quite simply a brace. So it really shouldn't make any difference. Having said that, I could still have done something, but the low travel on the slave does indicate something's going on. So fingers crossed, and let's work out what's going on. And I have here a package from Elise Parts, and I've gone a bit over the top, so I decided I might as well also get some cables here for the gear change, because mine, actually the cables aren't that bad, but this cup here on mine, which I think is all plastic, on this at least it has a metal outer housing, is worn, and it does introduce some slop. I also got, so I've gone totally over the top really, I got a new Brakemaster Cylinder, because the one on the car looks like it's original and there's that issue with the brakes being a bit spongy. And in the end I went for both. There's a new slave cylinder, I think is here, or is it in here? And yeah, this is a slave cylinder for the clutch. And I've also got a new master. Now I think that what I'm going to do is that I'm going to fit the slave first and just see if that makes a difference, because that's just the easiest thing to do. And if that sorts it out, then for the moment I'll leave it at that, because I'm really keen to take the car to get sorted out properly so it's drivable and I can just get it out of the way for a bit. But here is another thing. So I had an Easy Bleed. I've ordered another one because mine I noticed they do come with different fittings, but these two, which are roughly the same size, look identical. And so I had to use one of these with tie wraps and stuff to hold it down because it kept popping off. And I thought that couldn't be right. And having ordered the new kit, I can see that, again, there are two that look very similar, but they are slightly different. And this one has some thicker threads. And that definitely has been the issue. So for some reason in my package of my original Easy Bleed, they put two of the same fittings instead of two of the different ones. So that means I should be able to get the Easy Bleed to work, which should make things a lot easier now when I'm trying to sort it out on my own. Right, so what I'm going to do first is just crack off that hydraulic line there. Oh. Hopefully it won't be seized solid. Okay. Right, so the slave is in. I've got the new Easy Bleed connected up properly this time as well. Got some paper there just in case. Just going to hook it up to the tyre. Before I do that, and I have bled the pressure to under 20 psi. Okay, no bubbles. Oh, there are a few bubbles that came eventually. Yeah, tiny little bubbles, but... Okay, what I'm going to do now is start it up and see if it's made any difference or not. Right everyone, I am really on tenterhooks about this. Let's see if it's worked or not. Clutch feels weak, it just doesn't feel right. Could be the master. Yeah, not going into gear. Oh no! Maybe needs more bleeding. Let's see. So I've emptied out all the fluid using a syringe in the reservoir. Now I have to get to those bolts that hold the master clutch cylinder in place. They are on the other side, they're on this bulkhead, and in true Elise fashion, they are really easy to get to. Just try and show you. So, at the moment, I don't know if you can, how much you can see, but I am upside down in the Elise through the door, and it is that and that. So hopefully I'll be able to get them. New master cylinder is in, so now time to bleed the system. It's been about an hour and a half that I've been trying to get these bolts back into the master cylinder. I have managed to get one in so far, but the other one, it's so difficult to get to. I couldn't, it's even a struggle just to get the washer on it. It could be that the nut is on. Okay, it's all connected up. The new slave is in. It was a bit of a faff, but got there in the end. So yeah, not slave, the new master is in. I've just got the power bleeder connected again. At the moment there's absolutely no pedal and it's not taking up any fluid, so I'll put the power bleeder on and we'll see if anything comes through when I open this up. Okay, there's some fluid coming through because there's fluid in the line, but it basically has to keep coming until I get a big bubble. Ah, there we go. That's it. So hopefully that is now emptying the master. Brilliant. More bubbles. More bubbles. Okay, more. Wow, and more. So it's on. The clutch pedal I think does feel better. Not going into gear. Well, I just spoke to Ian at Elise Parts and he confirmed that the actual travel that the slave is supposed to have when correctly adjusted is 13 to 15 mil, which is less than the 20 mil that I was working on, but still seems to be more than the 10 mil that I recorded last time before I changed everything. I need to try and do that again now, but I'm going to have to get a helping hand and get a neighbour to come come and help me push the clutch in while I measure up. And finally, I just got one of my neighbours to come round and push the clutch pedal so I can measure up again. And To be honest, you can see for yourselves, I think it is about 13, maybe even 14 mil. I had adjusted the push rod as well at the end of the pedal, which shouldn't be necessary, but just in case. And so it's starting to look, well, it's not starting, it is now looking like it wasn't the hydraulics at all, but it is the clutch itself. Hello everybody, well, Frankie is definitely challenging me a little bit here, and it is quite likely I'm going to have to get to the clutch, and I've looked into it and I think that clamshell off has to come off anyway. At that point I'm almost wondering whether it's better to take the engine out. Anyway, before we get ahead of ourselves, I want to do a last couple of checks, because what would be soul destroying is if I get in there and find that the clutch is absolutely fine. So I'm going to bleed the system again. I have a new easy bleed bleeder, so it's working perfectly, it's not leaking, anything like that. I've already got a lot of fluid through there, but one last thing I want to try is bleeding it while I pump on the clutch pedal. And I'm going to record it because I won't be able to look at it, so I can have a look after and see if there's any bubbles that I can see coming through. Once I've tried that and that has failed, I'm going to assume, if that does fail, which I think it will, I'm going to assume that the hydraulic system is okay. I'm going to do one last thing. It's still possible, at least sometimes, to start the Elise in gear, briefly anyway, because there is some clutch, the clutch is working. I have to start it in gear with the brake on so it doesn't shoot into the wall. But then I'm going to just try slowly releasing the clutch and see if I can feel any judder or anything of that kind, because when I brought it into the garage originally, when this problem first came up and I brought it through these doors, obviously to bring it up here from a standing start you have to slip the clutch a bit, and I'm sure I felt that the clutch was wobbling a little bit, which would indicate maybe one of the fingers is gone. Anyway, that's the plan for today. There were definitely some bubbles there, which I wasn't expecting, yeah, I don't want to get my hopes up, because so far every time, but let's see what it does, if it works or not. Try and start it in gear, if it will. It's weird, so I was able to start it in gear sometimes and sometimes not. I was able, finally, when I wasn't recording of course, to start it again in gear. It just did. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, with the clutch pressed in of course. So I did start it in gear, and the clutch was dragging. It was pulling the car forward very, very slowly. I did try releasing the clutch a little bit with the brakes on, just to get take up and see if it might judder, for example, to give me an idea if there was an issue within the clutch. And to be honest, it didn't. I mean, when I let it out more, it did judder a little bit, but I'm wondering if that's simply because obviously you're pushing against the brakes there, the clutch is just, I don't know. So it wasn't conclusive. I've since remeasured the travel at the slave cylinder, and since I have measured it again, since I've bled it again and got out those little bubbles and adjusted the push rod as well at the front, it's now 15 mil pretty much, the travel, so it's absolutely fine. The travel at the slave is fine, so it has to be the clutch, right? My biggest nightmare is that I get into the clutch and find the clutch is fine, and I dearly hope that's not the case, but I think that's the only option I have left now, is to go into the clutch, because I can't see what else it could possibly be. So in the next episode, I know I said in this one, but in the next episode I am going to get to the clutch. So the rear clamshell is coming off, and then I'm going to decide whether to try and do it in situ or not. I've heard it's very difficult to do it in situ, but certainly getting the clamshell off seems to make sense anyway, because it's just so difficult without. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, because it really helps me. And I look forward to seeing you for the next one.